Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivara Yashodanandana Rajadanandana Yashodanandana Rajadanandana Yamuna Tera Bansari Yamuna Tera Bansari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Rajadanandana Yashodanandana Rajadanandana Yamuna Tera Yamuna Tera Jamuna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Gaur Pimanandi. Jai Mr. Paramahamsa, Pri Vrajgacharya Stotra Satya, Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Chiraboy Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, ISKCON BBT, Founder Acharya's Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Rantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Pimanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Dakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanditam Sya Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapsakam Sanagaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam To Jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Charitam Sakada Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyaya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vataram pangum langayate girim yatkripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatharam Yatkripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatharam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class, continuing from Canto number 7, chapter 13, and today we're looking at the text 41 to 46, which will take us to the end of the chapter. So text 41. Kvachit snato. One small second. Okay. Nuliptanga swasaha sragvi alankritaha rate vaish chare kvapi dig Balsa Grahabad Vibho. Kvachit snato nulip tanga Subhasa Srag Vyalankritaha Rathe Bhashvais Chare Kvapi Digvasa Grahavad Vibho. Kvachit snato nuliptanga Subhasa Srag Vyalankritaha Rathe Bhashvais Chare Kvapi Digvasa Grahavad Vibho. Kvachit snato nuliptanga Subhasa Srag Vyalankritaha Rathe Bhashvais Chare Kvapi Digvasa Grahavad Vibho. Kvachit snato niliptanga Subhasa Strapyakan Rathe Bhashvais Chare Kvapi Digvasa Grahavad Vibho. Kvachit sato niliptanga Subhasa Sravyalankritaha Rathe Bhashvais Chare Kvapi Digvasa Grahavad Vibho. Kvachit. Sometimes snata, bathing very nicely, anulipta angaha, with sandalwood pulp smeared all over the body, suvasaha, dressing with very nice garments, sragvi, decorated with garlands of flowers, alankritaha, bedecked with various types of ornaments, Rata, on a chariot. Vibha, on an elephant. Ashvai, or on the back of a horse. Shari, I wander. Kvapi, sometimes. Dikvasaha, completely naked. Grahavat, as if haunted by a ghost. Vibho, O Lord. Translation with no purport by His Divine Grace of the Prabhupada Ki. O my Lord. O my Lord means he is addressing Prahlad Maharaj. O my Lord, sometimes I bathe myself very nicely, smear sandalwood pulp all over my body, put on a flower garland, and dress in fine garments and ornaments. Then I travel like a king on the back of an elephant or on a chariot or horse. Sometimes, however, I travel naked like a person haunted by a ghost. Kindly repeat after me. O my Lord, sometimes I bathe myself very nicely, smear sandalwood pulp all over my body, put on a flower garland, and dress in fine garments and ornaments. Then I travel like a king on the back of an elephant or on a chariot or horse. Sometimes, however, I travel naked like a person haunted by a ghost. Text 42. Naham ninde nacha staumi svabhava vishamam janam itesham shreya ashase utai katnyam mahatmani. Translation. Different people are of different mentalities. Therefore, it is not my business either to praise them or to blaspheme them. I only desire their welfare, hoping that they will agree to become one with the Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Purport. Yeah, Prabhupada felt there's a need for a purport here. Becoming one with the Super Soul. As soon as one comes to the platform of Bhakti Yoga, one understands fully the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, is the goal of life. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sadulabha. This is the instruction of all the Vedic literature. Vedaisya sarvair aham eva vedya. Sarvadharmam parityaja mam ekam saranam braja. There is no use in praising someone for material qualifications or blaspheming him for material disqualifications. In the material world, good and bad have no meaning, because if one is good, he may be elevated to a higher planetary system, and if one is bad, he may be degraded to the lower planetary systems. People of different mentalities are sometimes elevated and sometimes degraded, but this is not the goal of life. Rather, the goal of life is to become free from elevation and degradation and take the Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a saintly person does not discriminate between that which is supposedly good and supposedly bad. Rather, He desires for everyone to be happy in Krishna consciousness, which is the ultimate goal of life. Krishna is sending this special purport. We are often, not often, practically all the time, caught up in judging situations and pointing the finger why he's like this, why he's doing like this, why he's selling like this. We are constantly in one of the two activities that are constantly going on, praising individuals, uh, liking individuals, favoring individuals, or if someone is, according to our judgment, doing or telling something not to our liking, then we become negative towards him. Very appropriate situation for all of us, actually. But sometimes it becomes more like prominent in our lives because we're all going through our ups and downs in the material world, and we will continue to have such experiences because because that is the nature of the material world. We are qualifying individuals, qualifying situations, qualifying so many things that are taking place, either as good and bad, as good or bad. So the instruction being given here is that first of all, it is not really our business to become involved in these ever constantly changing situations, because in the material world, it is to be expected that there is this constant changing situation within individuals, including amongst ourselves as devotees. We are often too quick to judge. That is why one of the injunctions, one of the first guidelines or instructions given to us as Vaishnavas is to blaspheme the devotees who dedicated their lives for propagating Krishna consciousness. Anyone who has taken up to the process of devotional service, especially, we should be very cautious in how we are exchanging or dealing with them. And even though seemingly we may be at times, from our understanding, not properly judged or not properly cared for, just like this one incident I've narrated a few times of something that happened to Srila Prabhupada himself. I mean, Srila Prabhupada, we know, our understanding by his character, his behavior, his whole, having been born in a Vaishnava family, come in contact with such a personality as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, receiving direct instruction from him, becoming directly initiated from him, and in this way being part of the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and taking up in the fag end of his life, at the end of his life, very seriously the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We recognize him naturally as the pure devotee of the Lord, as a liberated personality, as the ambassador of India for spreading, introducing Krishna consciousness all over the world. One day when Prabhupada was in Montreal, this was narrated by Gopal Krishna Maharaj. One particular Indian gentleman who had actually come in contact with Srila Prabhupada and was bringing people. I believe he might have helped Gopal Krishna Maharaj to come in contact with the devotees, because he was looking. He was not actually, I thought he was working in Montreal. He was actually in Toronto. Gopal, at that time Gopal. And he was visiting, because that was in 1967. I was in Montreal actually in 1967 also. The time was not right. Because 1967 was what is called the Expo year. Expo means the every 5 years, I believe, a particular country is selected for hosting all kinds of events, cultural events, sport events. So this was Expo. They gave the title "Man and His World." What audacity! This is the mentality, isn't it, of common people, of people who are not Krishna. Man and his world. So it's not man and his world. It's man and Krishna's world, right? But so he had gone there because it was a big event actually, or biggest event taking place in Canada at that time. And so he wanted to visit a Hindu temple. He's from India, Hindu. So somehow somebody directed him to where the devotees were. Then he came shortly after that, I think a few days maybe after Prabhupada came. So, it's like Providence, right? Krishna. I was a student at that time. And I knew about Expo, but I knew nothing about the devotees. And it was only some years after. Anyways, this one Indian gentleman was inviting people, and so he was like very nice, very favorable. And then naturally the devotees at that time, and still today, they were organizing some program for Prabhupada. So they organized, I believe, in some school or some kind of a public program where different people came. And so Prabhupada was very happy. Devotees organized the program. Prabhupada gave a lecture, very nice lecture. And in those days, pretty well, most of the time when Prabhupada would give a lecture, then there was a question and answer period, isn't it? So, any questions? I don't know how many people were there, but a certain amount of people. And amongst those people there was this Indian gentleman, who was very nice and favorable, etc. Anyways, he raised his hand. And then he started criticizing Prabhupada in public. It's totally unexpected, and the devotees were fuming. The few devotees who were there, they were totally taken by surprise. Hey, And he went on to say, why are you coming to America, trying to change people to another somehow? And Prabhupada just sat there and listened. Prabhupada didn't say anything. The devotees were waiting, were waiting for Prabhupada to just kind of like, blast the guy. And so the program ended, and the devotees, were very upset. And so they asked him after they came back to the temple, Prabhupada, why didn't you say anything? Why you didn't blast this guy? And then Prabhupada very humbly replied, I must have done something in my previous life that he just got back to me. It's coming back to me like that. And so Prabhupada at that time actually had stayed for about 3 months, actually, in Montreal. It took that time to kind of work out his visa. So Prabhupada, when he went to America, was a foreigner. So many of us who are coming to India are foreigners. Prabhupada was also experienced the condition of being a foreigner and having to deal with visas and whatnot. Because India at that time, Canada was a Commonwealth country. And therefore, him being from India could easily take shelter in Canada. Commonwealth country. Didn't need any visa actually to come to Canada. So when the time came for Prabhupada to actually leave Montreal by the end of the 3 months, so he told the devotees, I think he told Gopal, call this gentleman, this Indian person. Prabhupada, why do you want to call him? Of all the people, he was so, he insulted you so badly. Prabhupada told him, Gopal, just call him. Don't ask any questions. Anyways, he called him, and Prabhupada was, he just encouraged him, to be Krishna conscious, to take up to Krishna consciousness and to associate with devotees. And he didn't bring up the matter also. He just, so in recalling the event, Gopal Krishna Maharaj was pointing out how Prabhupada was completely transcendental. So in our lives all the time, and on special days or at certain special turning points of our lives, it happens to all of us. We seem to go through kind of a very often unexpected and very turnabout of events take place in our lives. And naturally, when that happens to karmis, we react. Generally, common people react very quickly and are quick to kind of put the blame on others and criticize others, blaspheme others, and become very much affected, overly affected, depending on what takes place. Sometimes people become so much affected. For example, if somebody gets fired, somebody's working at some corporate, and then the boss calls him in. Hey, we don't need you anymore, or whatever. And the guy's been working in the corporate, doing good job from his understanding, and getting good feedback also from different people. Then all of a sudden, unexpectedly, something like this happens. So a devotee has to, this is being mentioned here, that it is not really our business to judge what others say or do. Uh, and most of the time, most of the people are caught up in that, because constantly in the material world, things are happening that are not to our liking. Things are happening that we have not planned. Things are happening that we may not like. And somebody sent me another small kind of instruction. Sometime back, one person sent a small kind of short video with a very important instruction. There was one elderly lady sitting, this was in some city somewhere, and she was sitting leaning against a building, and close by, different activities were going on, and close by there was a small group of young boys just talking and like that. So she had a small cane, walking stick. Somehow the stick slipped out of her hand. You seen that? Huh? Her cane walking slip out of the hand, and she's an old lady, difficult to get up. So she looked at the boy, close by, can you help, and the boy just wasn't at all interested, and she was saying, oh, that's untrained, and anyway, so many negative thoughts came in her mind about it. So then, somewhat reluctantly, she got up and she just walked like one step or two from where she was sitting and as she picked up the cane, right on top of her head was a balcony, just like we have a balcony. Yes. The balcony just, if she would have been there, she was gone. She would have died or been crippled or whatever. So she picked up the cane and boom, this big sound. She turned around and she looked at the boy. So she could understand that, it was like some higher arrangement. I probably didn't know about Krishna, but it was, we say Krishna's arrangement, providence, that the circumstances were such due to her, she wasn't ready to get that on her head or to leave her body. So an arrangement was made that she had to herself move out of that particular situation. So what she considered bad ultimately came out to be good. If she had not done that, she would be under that. She would have died probably. So in other words, we cannot judge, or we should avoid judging individuals or situations, because that's why Krishna is always smiling. That's exactly what he did when Arjuna, who was, full of, completely morose and fully, dejected and was his mind completely disturbed, and then told Krishna, how can I fight, in this kind of situation? My guru's there, my relatives and my superiors, etc. And then the first thing, and Prabhupada comments on this, the first thing that Krishna did, he smiled. He smiled. So each and every one of us, we are going through all kinds of dramas in this material world, because the material world is like a big stage. And when we are not Krishna conscious or less Krishna conscious, then we get caught up and like a drama, we're supposed to act out our role, but we should not become overly serious about the drama, in the sense that it's it's only temporary, and this is not really us. What's taking place on the stage when we are, let's say, during our school days or college days, we're part of a drama. We know it's not real. It's temporary. So Prabhupada, in that context, actually, when he speaks about Varnasrama, very nice example that he gives, very appropriate, that for devotees, we should see these different designations, these different roles that we are meant to take up within the system of Varnasrama as like in a drama. We're not really a Brahmana. We're not really a Kshatriya. We are Das, Anudas, Anudas. But for the sake of things functioning, since we are in the material world, dealing with the material energy, dealing, when we say the material energy means dealing with the modes of material nature also. I mean, largely, even as devotees, because as we can easily understand, it's not that we immediately transcend these modes of material nature. So although Varnasrama is, we can say, less important in a higher sense, and as a matter of fact, not important for devotees who are fully transcending these modes of material nature, Prabhupada explains that to actually give, to serve as example, to give example to others, we also do. And that is why Prabhupada wanted that we create communities to give example to others also. Of course, creating communities is not only to give example, but to show that actually this is the actual standard, isn't it? Because the standard in the spiritual world is that Krishna, that's how he lives. I mean, Goloka, the planet of cows. There are cows in the spiritual world, and the whole life style is centered around this village life, which is when Krishna comes in the material world, it's a replica of that original spiritual world. So in other words, so many things happen to us also as devotees, and therefore we, as it is being mentioned here, we should be cautious not to become overly, just like again Vidura, who was such a saintly person, Vidura, Pandava, Mahabharata, Vidura. So he was, as we know, I mean, trying to give good advice on so many occasions also. And he was Jamaraj incarnated. He knew about dharma. And so he was always looking after the welfare of, was trying to give good advice to Duryodhana. But the more Duryodhana received advice from him, the more he became agitated, to the point that it was like too much, and he very badly spoke against him and insulted him in public, and threw him out of the palace. He left. The situation was such that Vidura felt that, okay, I can't stay here anymore, and therefore, as we know, all this happened just before the Battle of Kurukshetra. He went on pilgrimage and remained on pilgrimage. He remained traveling for 30 long years. 30 years touring till the very end, because after the Battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna's Leela continued for another, 30 years. Yeah, Krishna was 95 years of age, and then he wound up his pastimes at the age of 125 in Dwarka. So it was at the very end, that Vidura came to Dwarka, because not to Dwarka, he came to Hastinapur, where Dhritarashtra was staying and taking shelter. Yudhisthira Maharaj was very kind, even though Dhritarashtra did so many things against all of the Pandavas, but he treated him as his uncle and whatnot. Anyways, Vidura came to give him these very strong instructions that you should be ashamed of yourself to continue taking shelter here. You should leave, and he did actually also. So the point is that Vidura took it in one of the purports of that particular pastime. Srila Prabhupada explains that Vidura, he took it as a blessing. He took the positive side, as an opportunity to become disentangled with family situation, with politics and whatnot, and completely devoted or dedicated himself to spiritual life, isn't it? So many different things inevitably will happen to all of us, but we need to see things, understand things to the best of our ability, as we say, from a Krishna conscious point of view, and go on with life. We'll read one or two more because text number 43. Vikalpam juhu yats chitau tam manasartha vibrame mano vaikarike hutva tam mayayam johochanu. Translation and purport. The mental concoction of discrimination, okay, the theme continues, between good and bad should be accepted as one unit and then invested in the mind, which should then be invested in the false ego. False ego should be invested in the total material energy. This is the process of fighting false discrimination. Okay. Purport. This verse describes how a yogi can become free from material affection. Because of material affection, a karmi cannot see himself. Gyanis can discriminate between matter and spirit, but the yogis, the best of whom are the bhakti yogis, want to return home back to Godhead. The karmis are completely in illusion. The gyanis are neither in illusion nor in positive knowledge. But the yogis, especially the bhakti yogis, are completely on the spiritual platform, should be. Actual bhakti yogis, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14:26, very often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Mamsayo vyabhisarena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Translation: one who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down under any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Avyabhisarena. Those who know Sanskrit, avyabhisari. What is the meaning of avyabhisari? Of avyabhisari? Yes, vyabhisari means prostitute. But Prabhupada doesn't translate in the word for word prostitute in the 14th chapter, because I read the chapter quite.
Yeah, it is.
Huh?
Deviation.
Yeah. Prabhupada uses, he translates anyabhicharena as without fail. As without fail. But actually, I mean, which is of course correct. Fail means without deviation. Without deviation, deviation means like a prostitute. Prostitute is actually yeah, right, yeah, yeah. So then, Prabhupada continues here in the purport. Thus, a devotee's position is secure. A devotee is at once elevated to the spiritual platform. Others, such as Gyanis and Hatha Yogis, can only gradually ascend to the spiritual platform by nullifying their material discrimination on the platform of psychology and nullifying the false ego by which one thinks, I am this body, a product of matter. One must merge the false ego into the total material energy and merge the total material energy into the supreme energetic. This is the process of becoming free from material attraction. Actually, yeah. So just to continue the theme here, I will continue the next verse in Atmanu bhuttao tam mayam juhuyat satya drin muni tato niriho viramit swanu bhutyat mani stitaha. Alert translation and purport. A learned, thoughtful person must realize that material existence is illusion. This is possible only by self-realization. A self-realized person who has actually seen the truth should retire from all material activities, being situated in self-realization. Purport. By an analytical study of the entire constitution of the body, one can surely come to the conclusion that the soul is different from all the body's material constituents, such as earth, water, fire, and air. Thus, a difference between the body and soul can be realized by a person who is thoughtful, manisi or muni, manishi. And after this realization of the individual spirit soul, one can very easily understand the supreme spirit soul. If one thus realizes that the individual soul is subordinate to the supreme spirit soul, he achieves self-realization. As explained in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there are two souls within the body. The body is called kshetra, and there are two kshetragyas, or occupants of the body, namely the super soul, Paramatma, and the individual soul. The super soul and the individual soul are like two birds sitting on the same tree, the material body. One bird, the individual forgetful bird, is eating the fruit of the tree, not caring for the instructions of the other bird, which is only a witness to the activities of the first bird, who is his friend. When the forgetful bird comes to understand the supreme friend, who is always with him and trying to give him guidance in different bodies, he takes shelter at the lotus feet of that supreme bird. Haribol. we have to take shelter of that supreme bird, the super soul. When one actually becomes a perfect yogi by meditation, he can see the supreme friend and surrender unto him. This is the beginning of bhakti yoga, or actual life in Krishna consciousness. And just to kind of complete here, Swatma vritam mayetam te suguptam api varnitam gapetam loka shastrabhyam bhavan hi bhagavat praha. Prahlad Maharaj translation and purport. Prahlad Maharaj, you are certainly a self-realized soul and a devotee of the Supreme Lord. You do not care for public opinion or so-called scriptures. For this reason, I have described to you without hesitation the history of my self-realization. Purport. A person who is actually a devotee of Krishna does not care about so-called public opinion and Vedic or philosophical literatures. Whoops. We should continue to read the purport here. Prabhupada is telling one does not care about Vedic literatures. So that needs to be understood properly. Prahlad Maharaj, who is such a devotee, always defied the false instructions of his father and the so-called teachers who were appointed to teach him. Instead, he simply followed the instructions of Narada Muni, his guru, and thus he always remained a stalwart devotee. This is the nature of an intelligent devotee. The Srimad Bhagavatam instructs Jagyai Sankirtana Prayaya Yajantihi Sumedasaha. One who is actually very intelligent must join the Krishna consciousness movement, realizing his own self as an eternal servant of Krishna, and thus practice constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We were mentioning how when the pond becomes muddy, the pond, just like in India, people have a hard time with flour. They say floor. Can you give me the floor? What do you mean, can I give you the floor? Floor, this is floor.
that means happens. So you should take it as a positive in Krishna consciousness. In social life, you see in the social point of view, there is mistake. So, as a king, as a measure, he has to fish, and that is only for the external one.
Yes, yes, yes. So,
as a devotee, we should take it everything as
yes. Okay. So your point is that is from a completely transcendental spiritual. We should learn. This is continuing. Okay. So we take that the question is from social point of view. For example, for the manager, something, then he sometimes has to take certain decisions about. Yes, only such situations where that's why Varnasrama is important, because then Varnasrama it's clearly delineated, it's clearly defined what certain individuals, according to their particular varna or responsibility, are doing, isn't it? Like a king, someone who is a leader, in the position of king, manager is part of that. He has to take certain decisions and sometimes has to punish individuals, isn't it?
Even that is in the devotee community also, but they are not very constant about even if they are constant, so they should accept the punishment and so that to show the example.
Yes, so that even devotees, sometimes devotees are corrected either rightly or wrongly. Is that things are told to us, decisions are made which are, relevant to our service, to our lives, which sometimes may seem correct or not correct, or which may be also correct, may not be correct. But when a devotee is himself or herself caught up in such a situation, we have to be able to discriminate. Therefore, it will not unnecessarily, just like Prabhupada in one purport, we end up to Lord saying that the devotee should not become like completely fired up a particular cause. Like harmonies, they'll get behind some particular cause and become very passionate about it, etc. Like that. As devotees, we have to go with the flow of how this world is unfolding, knowing and understanding that there are forces at work, hidden forces. There are laws, there are reactions of karmic reactions taking place, for example, that we cannot see or cannot always immediately understand. And bottom line is we should not overly react or overly become disturbed by things happening in our lives, even though from our point of view, and maybe from the point of view of others, they are seemingly unjust or should not be happening. That we have to learn to be detached from many things that are happening, and if devotee has that mentality, if Krishna wants me to a certain place, he will make arrangements for that. So therefore, although as devotees, if one had been given a particular duty or responsibility, then he needs to act accordingly. Anyone, for example, who is appointed president of a temple then he has to discriminate. If somebody is not, for example, attending Mangal Arati, even though repeatedly told and reminded, and after some time, it means that individual cannot stay in the temple. Isn't it? If one is not able to follow the basic program or the principles of Krishna consciousness, as Prabhupada would explain, to be a devotee or to live in a temple is not a right of an individual, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. So for different reasons happen where we find ourselves having to, either by decisions of others or by circumstances, we find ourselves in a different situation that really, would be. So I mean, every situation has to be judged on its own merits. Of course, is that it is important to seek out at times the advice or counsel of seniors can help us deal with situations that sometimes may be more difficult to cope with, or maybe people doing or whatever.
Seniors also they are and injustice is happening in front.
Even if a so-called injustice is happening, we should not be. If we feel that injustice is happening to us, then we overly concerned. Of course, we do have within our people call like a grievance committee, or what's it called as an official name?
Grievances, I think.
There's a particular, it's a profession actually that requires quite a bit of a specialized activity, like mediators, to mediate. And there are differences between individuals, etc., like that. Yeah, the actual name is there. Anyway, just.
We need to go for just take it as not studying go on.
Generally, we should take it as some arrangement that is there, and should not become overly entangled. So, generally speaking, in some cases, it may be necessary or recommended to take it. Just like a small example, big example, when Prabhupada was dealing the land in Juhu, well, by Mr. And the devotees were being cheated. So Prabhupada heard about it. I mean, he could have said, okay, we'll just translate it. No, but Prabhupada fought the case and took different measures to actually correct the situation, which is, it was like injustice being committed. So, and I was giving the example earlier of Prabhupada in Montreal. So it's like different. In that case, Prabhupada didn't do anything. One of the aspects of considering Krishna consciousness, which is not so easy, actually pleased with according to another instance carry on, so to speak, not become overly affected or disturbed as a whole different set of variables that are there, and therefore behavior of an ideal person, and tomorrow we the chapter 14, which is ideal family life. So anyone who's interested in knowing about ideal family life, they like to attend those or hear those instructions that will be given directly by the foremost authority, not only. Yeah. Okay, I think we need to close now. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanande.